welcome, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is All Things Black Politics Live here from Washington, D.C. And by the way, it is Friday. And by the way, unfortunately, for some of the folks that are going to be listening in, it may be Saturday, Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday. But guess what? You're listening in to All Things Black Politics here on Boston Black News. I'm your host, Leon Rock, and I have two special guests who I have known for over, I'm not going to say the number.
Got it.
Hello and welcome. This is another broadcast of All Things Black Politics here live, yes, on Boston Black News. And I'm your host, Leon Rock. And we're here on Friday talking about something that is important to me and important to you, and that is politics, 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 and more politics. And guess what? We have a phenomenal, when I say phenomenal, I'm talking phenomenal professor, phenomenal writer, phenomenal contributor to the Washington Post, and a creator of a new organization, and actually a former gubernatorial candidate out of Massachusetts, and her name is Professor, and I love saying that, Professor Danielle Allen. Welcome, Danielle Allen, again to All Things Black Politics.
Thank you, Leon. You know, I love to come talk with you here on All Things Black Politics. You have just the most fantastic show. It is a real pleasure to be back with you again. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And by the way, we're talking politics, and unfortunately, we have a new ancestor. And the new ancestor, and I wanted to ask you a question about this, is our new ancestor who has passed on, is Mel King, from Boston, from Massachusetts. And he made significant contributions to the body politic. And I wanted to get your thoughts and comments about what is the meaning of Mel King and his legacy.
Mel King is a legend. He is a legend. He was a legend in life, and he will be a legend for a long, long time to come, and an inspiration. He was somebody who put care for his community at the center of everything he did. And with all that he had in his life, his mind, his brilliant mind, a loving heart, and real political savvy, he made a difference, you know, as an educator, as somebody building important programs to support youth development. And of course, as a politician, you know, that amazing mayoral run and then serving in the state legislature, he was a boundary breaker. So we all are in debt to Mel King for the example that he set for service.
Yes, no question, no doubt. How was your own personal interaction with Mel King? Did you have interaction with Mel King?
I regret that I did not get the chance to have a deep personal relationship with Mel King. Like many, I had the chance to see him on stages and in action and have those kind of short glancing contacts. But what I do know is the number of people I know who just revere him, where he is in their hearts as a spirit leader, a spirit guide. So I don't have that relationship myself directly, but the number of people who do is a thing that from the moment that I've been involved here in work and life in Massachusetts has been very clear to me. His impact was profound.
Right, no doubt about it. And so now you actually ran for governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You made a calculated and straightforward decision to actually, I guess, stop your campaign at some point. Can you talk a little bit about what that meant to you? What actually happened with the gubernatorial election, to kind of educate some folks that just don't know? They just were surprised that you made a decision not to continue.
Sure, and I'm happy to share that. So let me maybe start first with why I ran in the first place, and then why I made that decision to drop out. So the running, there were a number of things there. I mean, it was in the middle of the pandemic, and I was pretty frustrated with how our state government was handling the real disparities of impact. You know, there I was sitting in Harvard. We had all kinds of protection inside the university, but neighborhoods across Boston were suffering immensely and not getting the resources and support that they needed. And that's been my passion for a long time, that problem of disparities and the need to address them, and the question of whether or not our governing institutions are actually taking responsibility and stepping in and doing that work. So that was my motivation. And I will tell you, when I first started thinking about it, I made a lot of calls to people, and a lot of people said, you know, Danielle, you're crazy. You know, you haven't run for office before. You know, there's no chance, you shouldn't bother. And I thought about it, it's like, that's just not right, because the truth is I had the capacity to run. I did have the network. I was able to bring the fundraising to the table to mount a credible campaign. I had the depth of experience leading organizations and the like. And I thought, if I have the capacity and don't run, then I'm failing a certain kind of responsibility. I need to show young people out there, and especially young people of color, young women of color, that it is possible to do. So it was really important for me to step up there, despite coming from the outside, being a non-traditional candidate and the like. So what happened then, worked hard, spent 15 months getting to know people around the Commonwealth. It was a beautiful experience. I truly loved it. I can recommend it to everybody, actually. It was a very joyful experience and spirit lifting. At the same time, there are really kind of complicated procedural elements that are very significant barriers and obstacles to getting all the way to the finish line. And in particular, we have the most restrictive candidate ballot access procedures in the country. So we often use the phrase ballot access to talk about getting that ballot to cast your vote. But the phrase has another meaning too. When we talk about candidate ballot access, those are the procedures used for a candidate getting their name on the ballot. And we literally have the 50th out of all 50 states. We are the hardest state to get your name on the ballot in.
Wow.
And the reason for that is because you have to do two things. Most states you only have to do one thing, but here you have to do two things. Here you have to gather signatures, 10,000 signatures.
Wow.
And you also have to win delegates at party caucuses all over the state in order to have 15% of the party delegates at the state party convention in June. So there are about 600 caucuses that take place all over the state, and you've got to win delegates at those caucuses. And the truth of the matter is that when you have a really sort of very strong party favorite in the mix, somebody like Governor Maura Healey, fantastic leader, I admire her immensely. But when you have a strong candidate like that in the mix, there's just literally not enough room for other people to win enough delegates to get on the ballot.
Right.
So the fact that even two people made it on the ballot this go around, Sonia Chang Diaz as well as the governor, was really, three. We're all going to make it through. That was very clear. The math was very clear by February that three people were not going to make it onto the ballot. So in that context and condition, I made the decision to call a halt to my campaign.
Right. And by the way, you looked at the numbers and you analyzed it and said, hey, guess what?
Yep.
But you knew the body politics of Massachusetts. Is it similar to what goes on in Iowa, where they have caucuses and so forth in order to choose a president, as an example? And if you don't make the certain level of caucus engagement, and we watch it on television, we're amazed at what happens in Iowa. Is that similar?
Well, it's similar, but it's even harder in Massachusetts. Okay. So Iowa would be an improvement actually on what we have here in Massachusetts.
Yes.
Because in Iowa, when you go to those caucuses, delegates get given out proportionally. If you've got people there, you will get some delegates.
Correct.
In Massachusetts, it's basically a winner take all mechanism.
Oh, wow.
So we had people at the caucuses, but Governor Healey always had more people than we did.
Right.
So she was always taking all the delegates at every caucus. That's what happened.
Okay. Well, that gives me an opportunity to a segue to a important activity or an important organization that you actually founded or co-founded, and I'd like you to talk about that. That's Partners in Democracy. Yeah. What is all this about? I've been hearing all over the internet and across the country, people are having a conversation about Partners in Democracy. What is it? What are you working to do?
Well, thanks so much, Leon, for asking about Partners in Democracy. I'm really excited about this organization. It was born out of the moment of deciding to step out of my campaign, but also seeing that we have real democracy challenges in Massachusetts and really wanting to do something about them. So lots of times when we think about the challenges in our democracy, we think about Tennessee, right? Really terrible things are happening right now in Tennessee. It's pretty bad. Or we think about Georgia or Mississippi or Texas. I don't want to say that, we're in that kind of situation, but I do want people to be awake to the fact that our democracy is not healthy here in Massachusetts. And I felt that, and I'm not just talking about my leaving the race. When I was campaigning around the state, it was very clear to me that African-American communities were less engaged in the election than other communities. So I wanted to understand this more after I dropped out of the race. And so dug into some research. We learned that here in Massachusetts, we have the lowest voting registration rate for African-Americans in the country.
Wow.
So it's not, Mississippi or Texas or Georgia or even Tennessee. It's Massachusetts, where we have only 42.2% of African-Americans in the state currently registered to vote.
Wow.
That compares to 76% for white voters, about 60% for Hispanic voters, about 55% for Asian American voters. So those numbers are too low too. For Asian Americans, that's below the national average. For Hispanic voters, it's just at the national average. For everybody, we need to be increasing participation. So that was a sort of light bulb moment for me. We talk about the racial wealth gap in Massachusetts. I believe it's connected to that power gap, participation gap.
That's right.
We're leaving too much power on the table. And so I think it's really important to reconnect people to our political system. So Partners in Democracy is about bringing democracy back to people in Massachusetts, making it real, finding the way to make it healthy.
Very good. Now, is there a grassroots activities and movement that you are building in historically African-American communities, let it be in Springfield or Boston or Haverhill or Lawrence or, high impact urban areas, Brockton, Massachusetts? What is your plan for the future in a grassroots movement?
That is what we are building toward. I mean, you've exactly put your finger on it. But I also want to just start by acknowledging there's a lot of great work that is already happening. So Cheryl Crawford's work at Mass Vote, for example, she's already been on the case for years. And Shanique Spalding, who is based in Springfield and now runs Mass Voter Table, is a terrific leader. And she too is really crystal clear on these issues. So collectively, for example, we have we're supporting the effort of Representative Gentile to move forward same-day voter registration through the legislature. So that's a part of it. So there's great grassroots work that's already been underway, and we are seeking to back people up to provide support for those organizations. In addition, yes, we are working to build out a structure of volunteers to connect with gateway cities around the Commonwealth and start organizing and start really asking the question of what to you would be justice by means of democracy. That's our core mottos: justice by means of democracy. And to have a healthy democracy is about the right to vote, yes, but the right to vote doesn't get you anything if you don't have contested elections. So you also have to have a right to run and, actual choice in your candidates. And even having choice in your candidates and the right to run doesn't get you anything if you can't see what your elected officials are doing once they're in office. So in addition to the right to vote and the right to run, there's also a right to see and shape your community. That's about media and journalism. It's great that your show is on the air because you are giving people a chance to see and shape their community. So we're also looking for ways to support local journalism of all kinds and journalism that is really speaking to people about the concerns of their communities.
Well, I thank you very much for you actually pointing out that Boston Black News and all things Black politics is important in the ecosystem of your partners and partnerships. And let's talk about your ecosystem, the partners, your Democratic partners that are endorsing your strategy of renovating democracy in Massachusetts. Who are some of those key partners that you have thus far, and what will you be doing with specifically Black organizations in Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, other places throughout the Commonwealth in the future?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So as I said, we are working with Cheryl Crawford at Mass Vote and Mass Voter Table. Also with Progressive Mass, we've been collaborating in a variety of ways with a number of democracy reform organizations, Voter Choice MA, for instance, and Rank the Vote. Neighbor to Neighbor is an organization we've also been working with, but what we're seeking to do, and so this is really an invitation, all right? So I'm here to offer an invitation is we're hosting deliberations. We're asking people to come together bring small groups together, 8 to 12 people, to go over some of the facts about Massachusetts democracy that our research has uncovered, and then think together with us about solutions. We think same-day voter registration is a good solution, but we'd like to hear from people. We'd like to talk about that.
Right.
We think it might make sense to change our state and federal elections to a model more like the Boston mayor's race, where instead of having party primaries, you have a preliminary, sort of all-comers preliminary, and then you take a set of finalists through to a final round general election. But we want to test that idea. So this is an invitation. I'm really glad to be with you, Leon, on all things Black politics, because we'd like to have folks, who are ready to put their hands up and say, yes, I want to host a conversation about what justice by means of democracy means to me. So we're looking for lots of partners and colleagues, and would be grateful for any reach outs. So we're at partnersindemocracy.us.
Very good. Partners.democracy. Do that again for me.
Partners in Democracy, all one word, partnersindemocracy.us.
Yes, partnersindemocracy.us is where you go to learn more information on the work that is being done. I'm interested in this.
Can I say one more thing to your point, Leon? We are just about to advertise our first organizing job already. So we're just about to hire an organizer. And so when you asked, how are we connecting with Roxbury and Mattapan and Dorchester and the like? Well, we're looking for a fantastic organizer so that we can get going doing just that.
Oh, very good.
So this I'm advertising. I'm saying
you are advertising
in a job. We have an organizing job that we are about to offer. So we would really love to hear from folks, and would love to.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good information. There was another person that ran for governor, and she is out of Georgia, and I know you probably know her, Stacey Abrams. She created a organization as well, a nonprofit, to do the good work in her state, which actually realized significant results. Is this a duplication of effort? When I say duplication, in Massachusetts versus in Georgia, or is this a new brainchild of yours and you're saying something that is uniquely different? Is there a difference between what she built and what you are building? By the way, both of y'all ran for governor.
Yeah. Well, I take huge inspiration from Stacey Abrams, for sure. And as I was thinking about building Partners in Democracy, I absolutely studied her organization. So I have taken a lot of lessons from her organization. That said, I also think it's really important that every state is a pretty different place, pretty different ecosystem. And our issues are different from the issues in Georgia, really. So a lot of it, definitely the work around voting, getting people engaged, getting people participating is similar. But funny as it is to say, Georgia doesn't have the same situation with candidate ballot access that we have. It's actually worse here in Massachusetts. On other things, we are better off. We are better off for local journalism. We have a lot of work to do. We do need to rebuild an ecosystem of local journalism, but we're not quite as badly off as some other states. So we talk about what we call our 360-degree standard for healthy democracy. That comes out of work I'd done previous to running for governor, both as a professor and with various commissions I've been a part of. And that 360-degree standard is about focusing on the right to vote, the right to run, and the right to see and shape your community. And so we're really trying to work across all three of those buckets. So that makes it a little bit different from, Stacey's shop. So.
Right. So how do you re-engage our community or engage Boston's and other parts of the Commonwealth's African-American community to really, the young people, even the older generation that have become frustrated with the body politic? How do we re-engage them so those numbers jump up? When you tell me that number is 42%, that's a
painful
number.
It's
that's
really
like only less than half of Black folks in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts are registered to vote. It's
Yeah, no, exactly.
absurd.
No, exactly. It is absurd. It is, we can't live with this. Like, we can't let it lie here, right? We've got to bring change to this number. So, I mean, what I've been doing for the last few months, honestly, is talking to candidates who've been making an effort and not made it over the final finish line. Somebody in Springfield named Ayanna Crawford, who ran a great school committee race, for example. Vivian Birchall, who also ran a great race, Deco Gibril, and really talking with them about their experiences and what they have felt were the sort of barriers to bringing people out and getting people engaged. I mean, I think a lot of it is just the experience that, you know, you go out and vote and it doesn't make any difference. So that, to me, and then what I keep hearing, the message back is, well, we can't hold office holders accountable. You know, you elect people, but they get into office, and then whether they actually deliver for your community is, you know, really open question. And if they're not delivering, then what's the point of participating? And so then that's where I come to one of the other really striking facts about Massachusetts is that we also have, we're among the states at the very bottom in terms of number of contested elections. Okay. So that's how you hold elected officials accountable, is with contested elections.
When you contest them.
That's it. Exactly. So the question is, how can we have contested elections again in Massachusetts? And I believe that that is actually the key to re-engaging Black communities in politics in Massachusetts, is having contested elections. So some of the reforms we're interested in are about trying to get back to a place where we have contested elections.
Very good. Now, who is part of your team? Who is essentially your, if you, I don't know, a group of people? Who's your kitchen cabinet? That's what they say in politics. Who's your kitchen cabinet? Who are the people you're relying on to build your organization moving forward? And by the way, I'm sure you have a lot, because I looked at the website, and kind of an impressive group of folks that you've been working with.
Yeah, we have some fantastic people that I'm really fortunate to have pulled in as board members, advisors, and staff members. So Jordan Berg Powers, who built Around Mass Alliance, for example, is on our board and is just a huge source of counsel and good guidance. Somebody named Jaron Chang, you may not know Jaron yet. He's building a great organization called Gen Unity, which is about reconnecting younger people to their own power and their civic lives. He's a terrific advisor. And then on my staff team, Kelly Chassie is chief of staff. She grew up in Connecticut and is digging into this work now, and she's got like organizational superpowers. So I'm incredibly grateful for her work. Brittany Buford, who's got a deep history in community organizing, lots of work in African-American contexts across the board here in the Northeast, but also Michigan, Florida, Ohio. So she's also bringing a kind of national perspective to the work. So really wonderful people.
Very good. Now I'm asking all the questions that I think of. And I'm asking questions that I believe folks that are listening to this broadcast and the rebroadcast will probably be asking as well. Where do you get your money from? Where is the dollars and cents coming from? Is it coming from super PACs and all sorts of other places that usually organizations get? Or are you staying away from super PAC dollars and cents and all that?
So our funding comes from either private individuals or nonprofit organizations that are supporting democracy work. So I have some longstanding friends and supporters who've supported me, who have been fortunate in their own economic lives, and so they're contributing to the work. And then there's a national sort of group, there's a set of national organizations that are working on democracy broadly. So for example, there's an organization called Unite America, and it is really supporting the work of people working on independent redistricting to end gerrymandering, for instance, on people working on the kind of shift to electoral systems that we're talking about, where we get rid of party primaries and replace them with preliminaries, working on things like ranked choice voting. So a variety of different kinds of reforms, but sort of that democracy reform universe is really where our funding is coming from.
Very good. Partners in Democracy. You're a 501c4 startup organization You founded it in 2022. We're talking to Danielle Allen. Yes, she is I consider you a progressive. Do you consider yourself a progressive Democrat?
Yeah, no, I do. I'm a big advocate for what I call power sharing liberalism. All righty. So power sharing liberalism is really when we recognize that power structures have resulted in an unfair economy and unfair opportunity patterns and unfair life experiences. And so we need to achieve power sharing. We need to achieve that in our political institutions. We need to achieve that in our civil society organizations. It's really an idea I get from Martin Luther King Jr. You know, one of his last pieces of writing, Testament of Hope, he says in it, you know, these are great achievements. The Civil Rights Act, for example, Voting Rights Act, these are great achievements. A March on Washington, this is a great achievement. But actually, it's a mistake if you think that that's the whole of the work. That's right. Just the beginning. And he says the job is to achieve a full sharing of power and responsibility across all the organizations of our society. So that's what I'm about. I'm about power sharing, achieving that across all the organizations of our society.
Very good. Now, how about civic engagement? I know you're a civic engagement organization. There's no question, no doubt you're putting systems in place. What about young people? Are young people part of that critical mass? And how are you using young people or plan to use young people in the future?
They need to be a part of that critical mass. And this is a place where I have the good fortune of being a professor as well as being a democracy advocate. So I have a slew of young people who are working on democracy questions with me through my university work, and lots of students putting their hands up and wanting to get involved. Partners in Democracy also has some young people who have volunteered and want to get involved, but we need more. So this is another invitation. We definitely are seeing a phenomenon in our work where older generations have the time and flexibility sometimes. They also have a kind of clarity about the importance of democracy work. And we have not found our path yet to our full engagement of young people. So this is a moment for invitation. We are absolutely here to be involving young people. And so again, I mentioned we're just about to hire our first organizer, bringing in young people, connecting with communities of color. Those are jobs numbers, 1 and 1, not even jobs 1 and 2, jobs 1 and 1 for our first community organizer.
Very good. Now, Commonwealth of Massachusetts, let's talk about these. I want to drill down just a little bit about that 42%, that number that you gave us.
Yeah, and it's surprising and shocking.
That's just a shocking number, but not so shocking if we drill down and look at what is going on in the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth has a high incidence of incarceration, just like every other state has high incidence of incarceration of African-American men and women, but particularly men. And I know that the Commonwealth has some rules of engagement regarding making sure that people have the right to vote that have been incarcerated, but it's not fully fulfilled.
That is correct.
What should we be doing? And what should we be doing? Do you have any ideas in regards to mass incarceration and how it impacts on the body politics of voting?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts?
You're right. I mean, this is an incredibly important issue. Mass incarceration does impact the politics of who's voting. So in Massachusetts, when people have completed their felony conviction service of that, they do have the right to vote restored to them, but they don't always know that they do. So there's a lot of work to do to build programs to really inform people about their rights. That knowledge is not there. I also think we need to hold the Secretary of State's office accountable for educating people about that opportunity. Currently, that office does not do anything. I was a big supporter of Tanisha Sullivan in her race, you probably remember, and there's a lot more we could be asking the Secretary of State's office to do. And even, in this last legislative session, we did get passage of jail-based voting provisions. So for people who have not, in fact, been convicted of a felony, but may be in jail awaiting trial or something like that, people have the right to vote, and they need to get ballots. They need to get all of that resource, and that's not always happening, actually, and they're not always being informed that they have that right to vote. So our view is that there really should be somebody who's directly responsible in the Secretary of State's office for making sure that all across the Commonwealth that jail-based voting provision is being enforced. But that's going to take advocacy. And so that's why we are out here trying to build a community of democracy renovators. And we really do need everybody participating. We do need folks in Roxbury and Dorchester and Mattapan to come join us. And we have lots of jobs for volunteers, and we can scale jobs at different levels. So if you've got an hour that you can give once a week, we have a thing that you can do for an hour. If you've got 2 hours you can give, we have a thing that you can do for 2 hours. So, but that's what it's going to take, is that we have to rebuild a community of people ready to do this democracy renovation work.
Very good. I love that terminology. Democracy renovation, renovating democracy, essentially getting in there and actually doing it like a old house that is in disrepair, essentially renovating it and making it to a best practice on
That's
what
right.
needs to be done in America. But you're saying that you're going to renovate democracy at the place that democracy in this country began, and that is in Massachusetts.
Yep.
Am I wrong?
You've got nail on the head. This is where democracy began. And, not only is the house in disrepair and needs to be renovated to best standards now, best practices, also the house was never built for everyone, right? So it was built, some people took beautiful rooms with the view, and others got relegated to dark, dangerous, destructive basements, really. That's and so right. we also have to renovate to make it a place where there are good rooms for all. That's what the job is. So, yep, democracy renovation. It's not just about saving something old or anything like that. It's about understanding what we have, but then transforming it for rising generations.
So let me pose this question to you. What do people do? How do they get in touch with your organization moving forward if they have an interest in volunteering, if they have an interest in giving dollars and cents, if they want to be the best advocates possible for renovating democracy? They want to start from a certain level, a beginning level. How can folks just get in touch with you and essentially work with you to rebuild democracy?
Well, let me give you the website again. I'll give you my phone number too, and people should just go ahead and text me or call me. But so the website is partnersindemocracy.us, just like it sounds, partnersindemocracy.us. My phone number for anybody who wants to reach me is 617-335-0169. And I would be thrilled to hear from anybody who's listening to Leon on all things Black politics. I would be absolutely delighted. So please give me a call and we'll get you connected. We do need, as you said, time, talent, treasure, right? Those are always the things that any important work needs. On the website, you can sign up to be, if you're interested in volunteering. You can also donate through the website. So both of those things are possible. In May and June, we're going to be running training sessions for volunteers, and we'll start right at the very beginning. We'll start right where people tell us they want to start. So this is a conversation about democracy where we're asking people to bring to the table what you care about. What are you seeing that's not working around you? Let's get clear about that, bring your experience to the table, and then let's talk from that to the question of what the solutions are. Why are those barriers in place, and what can we do about them? So those are the kinds of conversations we're having. As I said, we've been running deliberations. We run a couple every week. We'd be really, really delighted to have new folks stepping up and saying, I want to host a deliberation for my community.
Very good. Now, I'm hearing, based on our conversation thus far, that you are building upon kind of the movement that Mel King started, and that is a movement of a coalition, a rainbow coalition. Right?
Yep.
Am I mistaken?
No, you are not mistaken. You're spot on as usual. You've got it. Absolutely. We are building a coalition. That's the goal. And, I mean, one of the challenges, let me just be really blunt about work in the democracy space is you have your official sort of democracy reform organizations. They're interested in campaign finance reform or ranked choice voting or something like that. They're not very diverse usually. And then you have organizations that are advocating for housing justice or climate justice, youth development, doing incredibly important work. Usually the work is itself blocked by democracy problems. Right. So our goal is to make sure that, why are housing issues stuck? Well, who gets, really harmed by the fact that we don't have same-day voter registration? People who rent, right? Because if your address changes right before that election, then you can't get back in there to get registered and vote. So, that same-day voter registration issue is a housing issue. That's right. So we're really trying to make those connections so that we can build a big rainbow coalition, as you said, to do that democracy renovation work we need to get to that place of power sharing, which I believe is the basis also for a healthy economy and a fair economy.
That's right. And actually, I'm loving the fact that you showed the interconnectivity between folks not registering, not voting, and housing and education and all the other challenges that low-income people, in particular, African Americans and others face in the Commonwealth. It impacts on one's willingness or ability to register and vote. That's a reality. Well, I have to say how much I appreciate you, Danielle Allen, Professor Danielle Allen. You are an amazing person, and I appreciate the time that you've spent with us today to educate us about your organization and what you are planning and doing right now. And actually, you're done providing an opportunity for folks to come out and actually, if they're interested, have the capacity or willing to build, assist you in building, you're given the opportunity of a lifetime.
It is building together. It is definitely building together. we're trying to build a community of builders, democracy renovators, like I said. And so, yes, I mean, my invitation is heartfelt. I want you, I want your participation. We need you, and we need to put these pieces together so that we can see that the housing issues and the democracy issues are one set of issues. They're completely wrapped up with each other. So
fantastic.
That's the work.
Yes, it is.